Let's get into governance. The Liberals are spending billions more on outsourced contracts since taking power. Shocking? No, not that shocking. They're incompetent, so they hire contractors out, right? Because they can't do the work. I'm not surprised by this, but the reports of this coming in is interesting. It's a Blacklock's report. Blacklock's report carried story, so check that out on their platform. Rupa says, according to Ontario Hospital Associations, about 41% of alternative level of care, ALC, are waiting to be transferred to a long-term care. Median wait time to get into a long-term care from a hospital is 114 days. This is an insanely high number of people to try tying up hospital resources through no fault of their own. So we've got people in hospital who don't need to be in hospital. It's more expensive to house somebody in a hospital than it is to house them in long-term care, especially if they don't need to be in a hospital. 114 days. Can you imagine being in a hospital for 114 days? That's 3 months. That's 4 months, right? Like, unbelievable. It's unacceptable. How are we wasting our resources like that? What's the difference between a daily per diem at the hospital and daily per diem at a long-term care? And then let's cost that. 100 days per each patient. How many patients? How many patients are waiting for this? How many patients are waiting 114 days? Like, what's the standard? 2 weeks? How is this acceptable? We have people who cannot administer hospitals, pretending they could administer hospitals, not being held accountable for it, and racking up first salary in the millions of dollars. Each person's taking hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary, and then wasting billions of dollars through inept use of funds and inept use of resources that would be much better off allocated to dealing with newly sick people rather than people who can't get places in long-term care, because there are no places in long-term care. How do places in long-term care open up? Usually somebody dies. And we're doing everything we can to prevent all of that, right? With all of the COVID protocols, et cetera. And yeah, I'm all for preventing death, right? But if somebody has 4 or 5 comorbidities and they're on the way and they get a pneumonia, that is a normal course of life and death in Ontario, especially during cold and flu season. And they use those deaths to justify further lockdowns and restrictions. So it's, we can never stop death, right? I mean, and I don't know that we'd be wise to stop death if we could do that, if we could achieve ending death. If death was just an illness and you could cure it like you cure whatever illness we've cured, let's just say we've cured an illness, then should we, right? Like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Would that not if you're immortal, it changes things. You don't have to hit certain life milestones by a certain time, and therefore, is that better for you or worse, right? You can languish in adolescence forever. You never need to grow up. Or alternatively, if you just extend life at the end, meaning you have to hit each life milestone as you would usually hit each life milestone, but you get to be 70 forever, right? There are, what other life milestones are there other than, maniacally taking over the world or something to that effect? Like, goodness me. I don't think it would be wise for humanity to mess with that, but it is, it seems to be out of my hands anyway. Damien says, today Justin Trudeau's policy to starve his own citizens comes into effect. We were talking about the supply chain. Already facing inflation of 5% in the trucker vax mandate will result in supply chain disruptions, food shortages, and increased prices. Where is our official opposition? Why isn't anybody talking about this? Jagmeet Singh agrees with it, and Aaron O'Toole is busy defending Canadian oil and gas, I guess. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you, but what are you going to do? Here is Rising Warrior. He is taking the Toronto Star to court because he's calling them libel, and he clips the fact that they need to obey libel laws. They being the Toronto Star, published an article that says the unvaccinated cherish their freedom to harm others. How can we ever forgive them? Inciting hatred against an identifiable group is hate speech. Anyway, retract these defamatory statements and lies, publicly apologize, and remove the article from your website and from any and all social media sites. Here's my notice. The executed original will be sent to you by registered mail. Here's the disclaimer for opinion pieces in the Toronto Star. Opinion articles are based on personal interpretation and judgment of facts. Opinion journalists have wide latitude to express their own views, subject to standards of taste and laws of libel, including views directly contrary to the editorial views of Toronto Star News organizations. See, it doesn't protect them against libel, right? So I don't know specifically what the case is, but I wish him good luck. You can read through his filed documents in this on this link if you're interested. Here is Mikhail, and he says, while reading Western comments on Ukraine, I can't get rid of the feeling that they're creating, intentionally or non-intentionally, a smokescreen and set the stage for a large-scale invasion of Ukrainian troops in Donbass. If so, it's a very bad and risky false flag operation. And so what's happening in Ukraine is people are saying that Russia is threatening an invasion. I've been showing you and talking about rising conflict in the Eastern Bloc for the last kind of 2 weeks, talking about, not sure if it's about vax mandates, not sure if it's about what it's about really, specifically. And it's a lot of saber rattling. There's a lot of diplomacy happening right now. Melanie Joly has been in all across the news, being asked about Ukraine and what's going on in Ukraine. Are we sending weapons to Ukraine? So there's a lot happening. And, well, is this going to expand further? I don't know. But here's CP24. It says, Russia denies looking for pretext to invade Ukraine. That's the authors. Russia's top diplomat on Monday angrily rejected the U.S. allegations that it was preparing a pretext to invade Ukraine as Russian troops have remained concentrated near the border. The White House said Friday that U.S. intelligence officials had concluded that Russia had already deployed operatives to rebel-controlled eastern Ukraine to carry out acts of sabotage there and blame them on Ukraine in a false flag operation to create a pretext for possible invasion. Speaking to reporters on Monday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dismissed the U.S. claims as total disinformation. He reaffirmed that Russia expects a written response this week from the U.S. and its allies to Moscow's request for binding guarantees that NATO will not embrace Ukraine or any other ex-Soviet nations or station its forces and weapons there. Washington and its allies firmly rejected Moscow's demands during last week's Russia-U.S. negotiations in Geneva and related NATO-Russia meeting in Brussels, which were held as an estimated 100,000 Russian troops with tanks and other heavy weapons are amassed near Ukraine in what the West fears might be a prelude to an invasion. So who knows? Nobody knows. But Russia's saying, no, don't worry about it. And the U.S. or the allies, the people who don't want Russia to invade the Ukraine are saying, yeah, this is going to happen. So what happens next? I don't know. I don't know whose move it is now. Are we waiting for the U.S. to move, or are we waiting for Russia to do something with those troops? Who knows? I don't know. Usually the U.S. likes to do preemptive strikes, right? Or preemptive restrictions, a no-fly zone or something like that. Hillary was talking about a no-fly zone. Was it in the Ukraine or in 2015 or 2015 leading up to the 2016 election? She was asked about Russia, and I think it was Ukrainian aggression, and she was talking about a no-fly zone, but it might have been some other country, and I can't remember now. Sorry about that, everyone. Peter R. McIsaac says, for anyone who wants the Prime Minister investigated for hate speech crimes, Section 319, subsection 1 and 2, contact RCMP, and he gives the RCMP email address. Frustrating. Sorry, I was frustrated because sometimes when I engage the trackpad mouse, my engagement registers as a click, and it's frustrating, and it happens outside of the show as well, and it's frustrating there too. Anyway, sorry about that. You can get the email address of the national intake and find out what's going on with that. And he's got I don't know if there's anything actually going on with it. Do you think that it is reasonable or likely that Justin Trudeau will be indicted on hate speech laws for indicting hatred towards unvaccinated people? I'm skeptical that anybody at the RCMP will take that and investigate it seriously. So, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Like, take it for what it is. I think it's probably a valiant effort, but I'm skeptical that our police are going to be like, Oh my goodness, I can't believe we didn't realize that Justin Trudeau was saying these hateful things on television. Right? Like, sorry, like, color me skeptical. Is that right? Should the police investigate the prime minister for saying the things that he's done, or saying the things that he's said? If you or I said those things about another identifiable group, I'm pretty sure I'd get a knock on the door, right? So there are people watching these things for people to make mistakes like that. Why can the prime minister do it and somebody like me can't do it? Well, that's complicated, right? That's a complicated story. But it seems to be true. So I'm hopeful, but do I think it'll garner real results other than getting people on lists? No, I don't.